Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. New York's International Airport buzzed with hurried travelers that morning. In the boarding line for Flight 782 to Los Angeles, a young black woman stood straight, her uniform impeccably pressed. On her jacket, the military insignia gleamed in the sunlight filtering through the large windows. Her name was Captain Maya Johnson, a respected soldier, returning home after a long and perilous deployment. As she calmly walked towards first class, ticket in hand, a disapproving murmur arose from behind the counter. The flight attendant, Madison, a blonde woman with a fixed smile, observed him with a cold stare before frowning. "Excuse me, miss, economy class is on the right," she said in a condescending tone. Maya, without getting upset, presented her ticket. "I think you're mistaken, I do have a first-class seat." But Madison chuckled softly. There must have been a system error. Tickets of this type are not intended for everyone. Nearby passengers began to watch the scene, some uncomfortable, others amused. Maya remained dignified, despite the whispers. She knew what it was like to be judged on her skin color rather than her actions. As tensions rose, a man in a dark suit approached. It was the captain. He had overheard the conversation from the cockpit. "What's the problem here, Madison?" The hostess quickly replied. "This woman claims to have a first-class ticket, but I think there's a mistake." The captain took the ticket, read it carefully, and his expression changed. He looked at Maya, then at the flight attendant. "Madison, let me introduce you to Captain Johnson. She's a war hero. Not only did she pay for her own ticket, but she's also a guest of honor of the airline." The flight attendant's face turned pale. The passengers began to whisper. Maya stared at her calmly, without arrogance, simply with that dignity that nothing could take away from her. And as Madison mumbled awkward apologies, Maya simply replied, "Don't worry. You've just taught me that some battles aren't won on the front lines, but in the eyes of others." There was complete silence. And the moment she took her seat in her first-class seat, the entire crew knew that this flight attendant had just received a lesson she would never forget. Once settled in first class, Captain Maya Johnson calmly placed her bag under the seat and took out a small, worn leather notebook. It was a journal she had kept since the beginning of her military career. Her hands trembled slightly, not with anger, but with suppressed emotion. She had faced sandstorms, enemy fire, and sleepless nights, yet nothing hurt her more than that kind of look, that silent contempt that reminded her that, to some, her skin was worth less than her uniform. Meanwhile, Madison, the racist flight attendant, was trying her best to keep a low profile. But the passengers hadn't forgotten anything. An elderly couple gave her a disapproving look, while a young man, sitting not far from Maya, murmured, "You were admirable, Captain. Few people would have remained calm like you." Maya gave him a slight smile. "Thank you. In my line of work, staying calm can save lives." The captain then made an announcement. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest on board today. Captain Maya Johnson, decorated for exceptional bravery on a humanitarian mission, is traveling with us. Please give her a proper welcome." The entire plane applauded. Some even stood up to thank her for her service. Madison, however, remained frozen, her eyes moist, ashamed of having publicly humiliated a woman she should have honored. A few minutes later, Madison timidly approached Maya's seat, holding a silver tray. "Captain. I wanted to apologize for my attitude earlier. I was unfair and foolish." Maya looked up, serene. "You know, Madison, uniforms don't tell the whole story. It's not what you wear that counts, it's what's in your heart." Madison felt her tears welling up. At that precise moment, she understood that she had just met someone far greater than herself, not in rank, but in nobility of soul. When the plane landed in Los Angeles, the passengers stood up one by one to shake the captain's hand. And the hostess, who had stayed away, knew that this day would mark a turning point for her, the day she learned to look beyond appearances. The days following that flight were difficult for Madison. Despite the smile she wore every time she boarded, she could no longer look at herself in the mirror without remembering that humiliating moment. The image of Captain Maya Johnson, upright and dignified despite the humiliation, haunted her. One morning, in the staff room, she overheard two colleagues talking about the news report that was on the news. Captain Maya Johnson, decorated for saving children during an attack in Africa, continues to raise awareness among young people about tolerance and brotherhood. Madison remained frozen in front of the screen. She saw Maya, smiling, surrounded by children who listened to her with admiration. She spoke of respect, courage, and what she called the real battles of life. That day, Madison made a decision. She wrote a letter, simple but sincere. Captain Johnson. I don't know if you remember me, but I haven't forgotten that day on the plane. I was full of prejudice, ignorant, and I acted maliciously. Since then, your calm and your words have stayed with me. You were right, what we carry in our hearts is more important than anything. Thanks to you, I started volunteering in an association that helps soldiers' families. Thank you for opening my eyes without judging me. Madison. A few weeks later, while serving on another flight, a passenger approached her. It was Maya. Always in uniform, always that peaceful look. Hello, Madison. I received your letter. Madison, her eyes moist, nodded. I am so sorry, Captain. Maya gently squeezed his hand. The most important thing is that you understand. The world changes one person at a time. The hostess felt a genuine warmth wash over her. It was no longer shame, but a new peace, that of having found the courage to change. When the plane took off, Madison looked at the sky through the window and thought. That day, I lost my pride, but I gained something far more precious, my humanity. A year had passed since that incident. The story of Captain Maya Johnson and flight attendant Madison Clark had quietly circulated on social media, recounted by passengers who were present that day. Some called him the lesson from heaven. That morning, in a large auditorium in Washington, D.C., a solemn ceremony was being held. The Department of Defense was honoring civilians for their actions in support of veterans. Among the guests was a young woman in a hostess's uniform, her eyes filled with emotion and her gait hesitant, Madison. She had been nominated for her volunteer work with the families of wounded soldiers. For a year, she had spent her weekends helping, cooking, and listening. And all of this had started because of a mistake, a prejudice, and a lesson in dignity. When her name was called, Madison stepped onto the stage, trembling. But when she looked up, she felt her heart stop. It was Captain Maya Johnson presenting her with the award. A murmur of emotion rippled through the room. The two women looked at each other for a long moment. Maya smiled, then handed over the trophy, saying in a clear voice, "This world needs more people who can recognize their mistakes and change. Madison Clark is living proof of that." Madison, with tears in her eyes, replied, "And I understood that true greatness is not measured by rank, but by the grace with which one treats others." The entire auditorium rose to applaud. The flashes were popping, but the two women could only see each other. Two destinies, once opposed, now united by a lesson in humanity. As the ceremony drew to a close, Maya whispered, "It seems as if fate has brought us together twice. The first time to show you your flaws, the second to show you your strength." Madison smiled through her tears. That day, she understood that sometimes, the most painful encounters are the ones that change our lives forever. Life has its strange ways of teaching wisdom. What Madison had experienced as a shame became the starting point of her transformation. And what Maya had suffered as an injustice became a source of inspiration for thousands of others. Months later, a photo went viral on the internet. The image showed Captain Maya Johnson and flight attendant Madison Clark, side by side, smiling, in front of an airplane bearing these words painted on the fuselage. "Respect is the true first class. Respect is the true first class." A simple comment below the image summed it all up. Two women. One mistake. A lesson for the whole world. Because sometimes, all it takes is a moment of humiliation to reveal the full power of forgiveness.